So today I'm talking about how to say no and let go of the fear. Because if you can say no, your relationships are going to be healthier and you're going to be less stressed. But first, my name is Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. And stay until the end where I show you how to be a supportive friend even when you're saying no. So in this video, you're going to learn 3 questions to ask yourself to walk you through the process of how to say no. Because this is an important boundary in your relationship. Because when you can't say no, you're going to more likely feel overwhelmed and resentful. And I don't want that for you. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, why can't I say no? 1, you're afraid that somebody else is going to be upset at you. This is probably the most common reason, but here's the thing. You're making a negative assumption. You're assuming that the other person isn't gonna like it. And when I started saying no in my relationships, I was shocked that most people didn't care. I would say I couldn't do something and I felt like I was gonna have a heart attack because I was so nervous. But most of the time, the reaction I got was, okay. Because unless you have a narcissistic person or a really toxic person in your life, those people may react to your saying no, absolutely. And I have a video on how not to react to a narcissist. But most people are going to be able to handle the no. It's not going to kill them. And it's probably not going to make them as angry at you as you think. So the key here is to really challenge those negative thoughts, because in order to let go of the fear of saying no, you have to be able to shift those beliefs and tell yourself things like, I have a right to say no and people love me no matter what. Because I'm guessing that you have people in your life right now that love you and want the best for you. And those are the people you need to start saying no to first, because that is going to be a lot easier than picking the most difficult person. The second reason you have trouble saying no is that you think it makes you a bad person, and it really doesn't. Think about all the people in your life that have said no to you. Do you think they're a bad person? Probably not. And I guarantee that 99% of the time, they're not thinking that either. But the problem is that you have to shift that belief inside of you. Because if I say to myself, I'm a bad person if I do something, of course I'm not going to do it. So I have to undo that belief and say something like, I have a right to say no because I deserve to have control of my time and I deserve to have healthy relationships, because those are the 2 biggest benefits of saying no. Now, what I want you to do really quick is name a person that you can start practicing saying no with in the comments, because I want to give you a good starting point. The next reason you have trouble saying no is because you're afraid that if you don't do what the other person wants you to do, they're going to leave the relationship. And let me tell you, if this is actually true, because the first thing you have to do is check out your negative assumption, that means you're in a toxic relationship. Because if somebody is raging at you because you're saying no and taking care of yourself, that's a major red flag in your relationships. Because saying no is an important boundary. So the next question you need to ask yourself is, why should I say no? There's a lot of reasons, but here's 2 big ones. By saying no, you get to control your time and your energy, because saying no means that you have more time for yourself and your family. And number 2 is it really is a barometer of how healthy your relationships are. Because when you can say no, it's going to help you be more honest in your relationship. Because when we say yes and we mean no, and I've done this in my life a lot as a recovering codependent, it really created a level of dishonesty in my relationships because I couldn't tell the truth. So I was putting on a smile and saying, sure, I'd be willing to do anything you want me to do. But inside I was dying because I felt invisible. I felt like my needs didn't count. But they weren't doing that to me. I was doing that to me. And that's what I had to understand in my codependency recovery, is that saying no is my responsibility, not somebody else's. It's my job to confront those negative beliefs that they're gonna get angry at me, because most of the time that didn't happen. The other reason why this is so important to say no is because it leads to passive-aggressive behavior. Because when I wasn't saying no, what I noticed was that resentment built up and it ended up leaking out in really unhealthy ways. Like I would find myself saying something sarcastic or something indirectly mean that I didn't even mean to say. And the minute it came out of my mouth, I was shocked, but I couldn't contain it, because over years and years of saying yes when I meant no took a toll. And I'll bet it's taking a toll on you. If so, say Me too in the comments, you're not alone. Because when we say yes and we mean no, it erodes our well-being. Because when we continue to say yes, we wipe ourselves out. And I don't know about you, but I actually started avoiding my friends because I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to say, you know what, this isn't working for me. I was way too afraid. So instead, I didn't call them. I didn't want to feel that resentment. And until I dealt with my inability to say no, my relationships stayed stuck. And I was dishonest. As a people pleaser and a codependent, that was a really hard one for me to own. Because if you feel like you don't have any choice in your relationship, you're always going to feel trapped. And your relationships are going to feel more like obligations than mutually beneficial connections. Now, in a healthy relationship, both people are able to say no without being super afraid because they trust that the relationship works when the other person sets boundaries. This is super key, especially if you're in codependent relationships, because if you can't say no, that's a sign that you're in a one-sided relationship where you're doing most of the giving and they're doing most of the taking. And I don't want that for you. Now, the next question you need to ask is, how do I say no? And that's what I'm gonna help you with, because I'm gonna give you a few ways to say no that really work. But keep this in mind. Don't over-explain. This is a big one because a lot of times when we're starting to say no, we feel like we have to explain it. But here's the thing. If you need to explain it and say, I'm sorry, and that's the easiest way for you to start saying no, that's okay. I know when I first started saying no, I probably did apologize a little bit and say, I'm really sorry that I can't help you, but I can't, and I would explain a little bit, but I still said no. So it's really important to give yourself permission to take baby steps towards saying no, because baby steps count. So the first way you can say no is, let me think about it. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a pause. So instead of responding right away, which most of us do, I was guilty of that. I immediately wanted to be the hero, so I said yes before I even thought about it. So instead, I want you to say, let me think about it, because that is going to help you go away from the situation, think about whether or not you want to do it, and then it's going to be a lot easier to come back and say no because you've already thought about it. You haven't just automatically reacted. The next way you can say no is to say, that just doesn't work for me. And that is something that you can say when you don't have the time or you don't have the energy. You know, sorry, that's just not going to work for me. I don't have the time, or I'm really busy doing other things. You can be vague. Again, you don't have to give a lot of details, but if you feel like you have to, that's okay in the beginning. The next way you can say no is by making it a compliment. I really appreciate your asking, but I just can't. That's a really lovely way to do it because you're really showing that you want to help, but you don't have the time or you don't have the energy. That's a really great way to show the other person that you care. Another way you can say no is, oh, I wish I could. Again, this is a soft approach to say that you wish you could, but you can't. Now, here's your bonus tip on how to be supportive while saying no. Help them find another solution. So you can say, hey, you know what? I can't help, but let's together figure out how you can get this problem handled. And brainstorm with them and talk with them about other ways they can get their need met, because that shows that you're really a supportive friend. And that will go a long way towards them being able to accept the no, because you're offering to help. And that's part of being a good friend. Now, the next step for you is I want you to go watch my video on setting boundaries, because that's your next step. Thanks so much for watching.